Hello, welcome to Making Photos. I'm Ian Butterfield. And it's that time again when I react to your photos. Yes, this is my regular, semi-regular feedback videos. If you want your images featured on one of these videos, then there's two ways you can do it. You can either upload them to my Facebook group. The link to that is down below, or, and even this is the best way, is to email them to feedback@makingphotos.co.uk. I give priority to the ones which have come in through the email, through WeTransfer, because I can give better feedback on higher resolution ones which have got the shooting data in there. So if you want to make sure your images are included, that's the best way. Now, let's have a look at this week's crop of the images. I'm going to go through them this time in alphabetical order of the photographer's first name. So right at the start, this time is an image from Andy May. Now, I believe there's a video which goes with this. If I can find the link to it, I will put it down in the show notes for you so you can have a look at how Andy created the image. I'm assuming a sunrise rather than a sunset. I might be wrong on that. I haven't checked his notes, I should have done, on there. But images are supposed to speak for themselves. I love the sky on this, Andy, but what bothers me a little bit is the detail, or rather lack of it, in the trees. Now, your style and mine are very different. Yours tend to be a little bit more, less contrasty than how I produce images. But I'd still like a little bit more contrast in those trees. So the easiest way to add that little bit of extra detail is the clarity slider, and I would just bring it up slightly on there, and I think that's about all it needs. I do like the image. If there's one thing that I'm slightly uneasy about, it's having the sun, it's not far off centered in there, and I think it would be stronger more off to one side. So I'm just going to have a look what crops might work with this, where we could get it a little bit more over the third line, and maybe just something, I don't know, let's try going up rather than down. No, it depends whether the feature of this is the sky, or whether what we want to feature is more of the trees. So yeah, I quite like that, a little bit more off to one side. I'm reluctant to lose more of this tree because it's a nice framing device on there, but perhaps something like that as an alternative. And because I like my vignettes, I might just try putting a little bit of a vignette in on it as well. And of course feathering it off. So I think something like that would be all I would do with that. Just that little bit of extra clarity, a crop, and a bit of a vignette to help draw you into the sunset on there. But it's a nice shot, Andy, and those are just really alternatives rather than saying you must do it like this. So let's move on to your other one. Right, we had a bit of a discussion about this one in the Facebook group, and a couple of things with it. I really like the simplicity of this. I like the strong diagonal in there. The horizon's not truly straight, so if I go to the crop tool, R, pick up the spirit level, and just draw a line along that horizon, we've got that straight. And you see, it's not much, but it's just enough on there. And this little bit of orange, which I know is either a sunrise or sunset peeking through, it's distracting. So if I take the brush and just do that with it, that I think helps bring the tones all together. I would also, looking at this, wonder whether my good old black and white 3 preset, whether that's an alternative for it as well. Not sure. I do like the colour one. I'm just showing that as an alternative rather than saying it should be like that. But no, I like that. I like that shot. Next, David Lee. Now, David sent me these via WeTransfer. You see, I keep plugging that. WeTransfer, feedback at makingphotos.co.uk. Now, he'd been doing a Joel Grimes course, and these have been inspired by that. This first one I really like. I like the floppy hat over the face. There's just something about this. The black and white conversion is spot on. That those light dark areas, it uses contrast. It's a good pose. So good direction on this with your model about how she should pose for it. There's nothing I would change in that, David. Great shot, one to be proud of, portfolio worthy. Let's move on to your second one. Now, this one I don't think is quite as powerful as the first. And the main reason is it's a nice pose, but there is normally a rule in posing people, and that's to try and avoid the nose breaking the line of the cheek. Now, because she's got a head back, it's not really the line of the cheek, but it is the line of the face on there. So either I would have had her face turn more towards the camera, or better still with this pose would be to do it in true profile. So turn the face away so that she's looking and is in true profile. So you just get, I try and show you there, so you get something like that, and then the hand can come up that sort of way. Yeah, it is the rear hand. So you end up with something like that, as opposed to that slight angle over off to one side. So that would be my suggestion on there. It's a nice black and white conversion, but I think just that pose needs working on for it, David. I think with your crop as well, I know it's probably been left so that you've got space. So I would just tighten that very slightly at the top, maybe a fraction at the bottom as well. I think that's a slightly better crop with it, just that tightening up. James, now I've taken 3 of your images from Facebook, and they're really all of a set. This is Cardiff Bay in the mist. And I like the set. I just think there's a couple of things we can do with 1 or 2 of them. This one thing to avoid with things like this is to try and avoid cropping halfway through things. So this is an easy fix. If I bring that in and bring that in, and we don't need all that sky in there. If we just bring that down, I think that's a much more powerful shot. Now, I know part of the mistiness is the mistiness is part of the quality of this, but I just wonder, and I haven't tried this, what happens if we bring blacks in just that little bit more and maybe give it a little bit more contrast? No, I don't think it needs any more contrast. I'd maybe knock the blacks down quite that far. I'm just going to play slightly with the dehaze. Don't want to go too far with it. Just a very slight dehaze so we can see what's there. So before and after. It's very subtle, but just helps the detail come out a little bit. Now, maybe I've gone too far with those blacks. I'm not sure. Yeah, about there. Not much in it with that, but I think the crop is the thing which really helps with that one, James. This one is an interesting shape. I think it needs something, and I think a black and white conversion and a tighter crop, I think, would be really what we need. So if we get where our horizon is about there, I think that's a bit more powerful with it on there. We still get that mistiness to it. So that would be my suggestion for that, James. This one, I think, is the weakest of the 3. And to be honest, I would have left it out and just kept the other 2 in the set, because we can't quite work out what we're looking at on either side on here. So I think that one is a bit weak. I wouldn't include that with the other two. Jon Bamber, we had a little bit of a discussion about this one online, and actually since then I've been able to look at this in more detail, and what I thought I was seeing online was a lake there, but actually, exactly as you pointed out, and that was actually read your comments, it's an inversion. So we've got the cloud below this Bothy up on the hills, either Lakeland or Scotland. I can't remember where as I'm going through this. Now, I think what would work better with this, it's a difficult one really, because we want to see that cloud in there, but I don't like the fact that the horizon goes straight through where the Bothy is at the top of there, and so I think a lower perspective might have helped with it, or I don't know whether the hill's going up behind the camera to try and get higher so that was over the top. I don't know. It feels a little uncomfortable. All the sky at the top there, I don't think's needed. I probably would be more tempted to go with a crop, more panoramic sort of crop like that. And I think that's a little bit more powerful. I think that kind of more panoramic crop suits this image well. The processing is good, the colour is good on here, everything about it is good. I really like the shot and the whole colour and everything on there. So well done, Jon. Jon Barton, I think you know what I'm going to say on this. Your horizon's wonky. And those verticals need correcting. So let's just do the horizon like that. Have I got it right? Have I gone too far? Something like that. Even just doing that improves it no end. I do like the lead-in lines of the tram and the positioning you've got for it. Where everything is on there. It's a good black and white conversion, but just remember those little details that make the image work. The other one, I've got to pick this one on there. I do like it. I like it. The bird is nice. It's slightly soft on there, and maybe slightly soft on that as well. Now, I think this is probably Blackpool, one of the piers. I have a very similar shot to this, very similar indeed, actually, except I'm on the other side of the pier, very similar sunset, probably Blackpool, I would guess. So, nice shot with it. I don't know whether we need a little bit more of the beach on there. I think the square crop works on it. I'd like to see the bird just a little bit further over, and we can easily do that by doing something like this. If I want the bird there, you see how it's picked it up? And now I do another one here, and this time pull that over on there, and I can then position that bird exactly where I want it in here. So I think about there. So it is easy to move things around in Lightroom. You might not be aware of those sort of techniques, folks, where you can just move an object around like that. Is that a dust spot on there? Might be. I'm going to get rid of it anyway. It's just a slight blemish on there. That's better. So I'd do something like that with it. Potentially add a little bit more contrast into it as well. But that's all it needs on that, Jon. Nick, thanks again for submitting an image. And this one, let's have, yeah, nice and sharp on the eyes. Now, I know you said this is a 50mm lens. You've used a filter to give the colour effects. Now, very shallow depth of field, which is great. One thing just to watch with shallow depth of field is you still have to pay attention to your background. Now, when this is as a thumbnail, so if I go down here, it's now very obvious there's a person standing behind. It's much more obvious on the thumbnail than it is on the full image on there. So just be aware of that. A pace over to the left and you could have hidden that person. We've got something going on over here. So just watch your backgrounds a little bit, Nick. And I think this is also one which might benefit from a vignette. So if I bring in a bit of a vignette and feather it off, like that, I think that helps draw the eye more to the subject and sort of dulls down this brighter area that's kind of drawing the eye away from the subject with it. So I'd do something like that on there. The expression's a strange one. She looks as though you've caught her speaking rather than posing on there. So I'm not quite sure about her expression, but that's the feedback. Anyway, it's an interesting shot. Don't get me wrong, Nick. I do like it, and thank you for submitting it. Next, Richard Lovelock. Right, these two images, Richard. Had you not told me that you created them in a studio, I would have been fooled by this. What Richard has done here is the background is a video projector projecting a sunset. He's then set up a light on a rim light with an orange gel on to make it look as though it's the light from the sun just hitting the model. So that's how he's done it, and that is brilliant. However, I don't think the pose and the crop is quite working on this, Richard. For a start, we don't need quite as much at the top there. You've cropped through, more or less through a wrist, which is always a no-no. I would try with the crop, maybe just bringing it in a little tighter like that. And I think that works better than what you've got before. It's just the way we've got all the creases in the thing. Now, what would work on this, using this technique, once you've got it set up like this, if you had got a willing model for her to get her hair wet and to do it almost as a sheer thing by, say, removing the bra and just having a damp top, even without it being see-through, would make it look as though she's come out of the sea, and that would sell the illusion even more. I much prefer the expression on here. Just watch the clothing down at the bottom. So again, I might just crop in that fraction tighter on there, and I think that works a little bit better. But the concept is really good, and I'm going to try this at some point in the studio and see if I can fake it as well. I just need to find some decent sunset images that I can use. Sonja, I think these are the last two images of the set. So again, another one of the Belgium villagers. I talked about one of these last time. This is much, much better than the one in the previous video. Really like the crop and the selection on here. It's following more the rules I was talking about last time, where we've got the road really leading us in. We've got nice points of interest on either side. We've got different textures and different colours in there, and I think this works really well. I suspect there's a sky replacement going on. Because if we look through the trees, it looks a little bit odd that we've got an orange sky there, but we haven't got it through the trees on there. So just be careful with your sky replacements. Sometimes they do stand out a little bit like a sore thumb if you're not very careful with them. It's tricky, I know. I can see what you've tried to do. I've done a similar thing. Might even have been the same replacement sky, I don't know. But where you've got trees with that, you need to, I'm not going to show you how to do this, but what happens with sky replacements is if you've done it in Photoshop, it creates a mask on there, and you can actually edit that mask. And by just a very faint brush on there, and maybe just setting it a brush to just affect the highlights, you can actually bring through some of that colour into those areas where it hasn't been affected. But that's my main thing on here. If you're going to do a replacement sky, just be careful, because sometimes they just stand out like a sore thumb that they're a replacement. But the scene's great. You may not even have needed it. And finally, your fish. You know, I always have trouble giving you feedback on these, largely because I don't know that I would do any better anyway. They're always spectacular, and I think this one's no exception. So thank you for sharing it, and that's about all I can say. So that's this week's crop of images for feedback. Hope those of you who've submitted images found it helpful. I hope those of you who are just watching this find it helpful seeing somebody responding to and giving feedback on images, hopefully in a constructive way with them. So if you'd like your images next time, do send them to feedback@makingphotos.co.uk. If you want to see other feedback videos and reaction videos, you'll find the playlist is on the screen. There's also another video all about editing in Lightroom, which you might find helpful. So thanks for watching, and until next time, as ever, keep making great photos. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.